So I think the term here, but it's 7:43. Therefore, the speaker comes. That's 46. Therefore, agreements, but there's still.
Well, now the vote, they haven't got the guaranteed vote. They haven't got a guaranteed vote in the House because the Greens could vote against them.
Yeah, I know. They're gonna have to have everyone show up. 1 minute. I'm watching the clock. Come on now.
Looks like one.
I'm looking at that clock up there. I mean, it's big and bold. This one is an old analog clock. You can't trust it. Okay.
It's frozen. We'll just watch it for the next.
That's right. Everyone just keep an eye on that clock.
Yeah.
Be the longest minute.
Well, you wait till I ask for an extension at 11 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
All right, okay, thank you, everybody. We will call this meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for attending, a large audience, all four, but that's good. First of all, I'd like to do is the First Nations recognition. It's very good that we're sharing this land with the Sooke Nation and their traditional land, and look forward to working with them over the next number of years. Approval of the agenda. So if I could have somebody make that motion. Okay, Bateman and St. Pierre. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, 1, 2, 3, and I think that's the fourth over there. So that was unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is 4, adoption of minutes, regular council 15th of October, 2024 minutes. St. Pierre, Bateman. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. It's unanimous. Next order of business is a report of the Chief Administration Officer.
Just a very brief update to the report included in the agenda, and that's just for anyone listening at home that maybe hasn't clicked on the agenda, that we have an open call for parade participants in the Santa Parade this year, taking place December 8th. And this year's theme is Silver Bells to celebrate our 25th anniversary since the district's incorporation. So the information, if people have any questions, there's an application form. So just encourage everyone that wants to participate to fill out the form and on the Lions website, and we will go from there. Applications are due by November 25th. And there will be a new route this year. We're trying to keep it off the highway as much as possible with all things. And so looking forward to working through that new route and going from there. The one posting we have has closed now for the executive office coordinator. So stay tuned for updates on that as that competition progresses. And for project updates, I will pause on the charters one for now. We're just waiting a little bit of more information, and hopefully there'll be some good news updates either tomorrow or Wednesday provided to everybody. And our goal has always been to try and get this project open on time and on budget, and cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to achieve that goal. So stay tuned, everyone. Thank you again for your patience. The tender has been posted for the Little River Multi-Use Trail project. So excited for that project, that tender to close, and then we'll find out the potential bids, and council will be provided options for hopefully a successful proponent for that project. But that's about it. I guess I'll leave it there. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to add anything further.
It's going to be an interesting year to see the Santa Parade somewhere else. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier on those road marshals because they put up with a great deal of angry people. So thank you for that. Is there any questions for our CAO? Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead.
Through your
just the chair.
your councilship.
Yeah.
To staff, just a request, the link for the climate field guide is dead, goes to an oops page. So if we could have a look at that so the public can actually access that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Will do.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman, I think you had your hand.
Yeah, good news that the 25th anniversary is being marked at the Santa Parade a day after the fact, right? December 8th. Are we doing anything else to mark that occasion?
Absolutely. Stay tuned for more information. We just thought this will be the initial kickoff event to host that. But yeah, we're looking for, Mr. Curry here, our Deputy of Finance, is trying to find some grants for us as well to do some events throughout the year to kind of celebrate our 25th year throughout the year. And so rather than just a one-time event, we're hoping to just there's some grants programs available from the federal government and stuff. So we're just going to look to that. So stay tuned as budget and the year progresses. Our communications manager of communications obviously is all over this as well. And Gail, Scott, our economic development officer, is excited for this. So yeah, stay tuned. There'll definitely be lots more to come, lots to celebrate for the district for sure.
Any other questions? Okay, the next, thank you very much for that report. By the way, I got to take a motion that we accept the council received the report of the Chief Administration Officer for information. So move, Councillor Bateman, second with Councillor Pearson. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? That's good. That's carried. Thank you. Now we will go to the public question and comment period. So anybody wish to comment on anything that has to be on the agenda? So you get 2 minutes and just state your name and roughly where you live. Yeah.
Herb Haldane, Sooke. We have something on the agenda tonight. It's I guess it's the bylaw, and it's a bylaw that Urban Systems did for you. You paid them $225,000. It's a review, and at this point here, it's I would think it should come forward for everybody to have a look at. I mean, it's the development procedure bylaw. Sorry about that. So the idea here now is that we've had some input months ago. Urban Systems took that input, they put something together like a draft bylaw, and we would think that the draft bylaw could come to a committee of the whole or something first and be discussed, because to take first, second, and third reading or something on something that we haven't even seen where our information went or how it was used or you know, basically where the process has gone. And you paid a lot of money for it, so we don't want to hurry the bylaw up and find out that there's flaws in it and then of course have to redo it later and so on. So I'm just asking you to maybe just have a second thought about pushing it through super fast. I mean, we did a bunch of bylaws in the past that we're looking at redoing now and stuff because we sped up the process, and there should be some sort of a relationship between the people who apply the bylaw and of course the user groups that are going to use it. So I just hope that you look at that and give us a thought about whether we could discuss it at a Cal meeting or something. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, anybody else? 2 minutes. Hearing none, then we will carry on. So the next order of business is 7.1 consent agenda. The following items on the consent agenda be adopted by consent. That's item 7.2 correspondence. Does anybody have anything from that correspondence they wish to withdraw for later discussion? Okay, St. Pierre moved and Bateman second that what do we do? Adopt the consent agenda. All right, so any discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you, that's passed. Give us a record time. Okay, now we're on to reports. And we're doing the transportation master plan and we have a report. So over to staff.
Perfect. Thank you, your worship. Through your worship to council, I'll just give corporate a minute if they can pull up an overview map. Just highlights remaining critical activities on our TMP, Transportation Master Plan for the district. It'll help us. I'm going through the update here. So this update is provided to council to provide a high level overview of remaining key aspects of the transportation master plan. It also provides some information of transportation projects that the district's working in conjunction with the ministry on that are currently in the design stage, as well as a major project that the CRD has slated. This update I'll speak to approximate project costs, where these projects are currently earmarked in the district's 5-year financial plan, and then relative sequencing of the projects that are being proposed and timelines of the projects pending funding being in place. A lot of the remaining aspects, looking up on the screen there, you'll see phase 6, 7, and 8. That's the remainder of Throop corridor going in between the church roundabout and Charters, as well as the new Throop connector that would go from Charters to Sea Park with a large roundabout at the north side of Sea Park, and the Phillips corridor arterial upgrades. Those are substantial projects. Upwards, these projects could realize costs of upwards of anywhere from 28 to $35 million. We're currently taking these projects through final design. We anticipate having final design completed on all these through summer and being tender ready in fall of 2025. So going through the updates at a high level, the Throop connector and going in sequence that you have in the report in front of you. The Throop connector is we're entering into about 75% design on this, where we're doing all the utility relocate designs that would be on Phillips corridor as it ties in to where the Throop connector will join at the roundabout north of Sea Park. Like I said, we're hoping to have this design finalized in 2025. We should be tender ready by fall. Right now, the project's earmarked in the district's 5-year financial plan for 2027. And this project could realize costs of upwards of $18 to $20 million. The next piece, which is shown as phase 8 up there, would be the upgrades to Phillips Arterial Road. This is a significant project. It has its challenges with the location of Sea Park Rec Center, as well as the steep slopes going on the other side of the road. Again, we'll have a final design on this project by approximately summer, fall 2025, and it'll be shelf ready to tender out. We're just going through value engineering process just to finalize the most feasible design, given the challenging constraints that this project has. Phase 6 up on the map, that's part highlighted in yellow and red there. That's going in between the roundabout and Charters. We will have a final design on that project by spring 2025, and it is earmarked in the district's 5-year financial plan currently right now in 2027 or 2025, sorry, but we're moving that for council's consideration into 2026. Similarly, as you can see on the bottom of that map, there's phase 5A and 5B. That is basically the south end of Charters going up to the highway, including the intersection, as well as down to Lanark. There's a current design in place for a 4-legged intersection for that project. The project is strategically broken into 2 phases, 5A and 5B, and that is for the purpose of 2 things. One, the ministry has a responsibility for the 4-legged intersection to come up with half the cost for that, as well as it's separated for a grant funding application, which you'll see in a subsequent report. Right now, the district has secured $500,000 towards Charters South, which is phase 5A. And in the subsequent report you'll have next on the agenda is to support an application for another $500,000 towards 5B, which is the intersection. Like I said, these 3 remaining projects, they are substantial projects and working towards completing the TMP and addressing most of the traffic congestion issues, or working towards a solution for those in Sooke. There are substantial costs associated with these projects, and if district and the public wishes to go forward with these projects, borrowing will likely be required in the short term. So with that said, I'll continue on with a few further updates. So I've gone over the 3 primary pieces that need to be completed, as well as the intersection project on Charters and Highway 14. Right now, while I'm finalizing the design on the Charters intersection, I was successfully able to secure money from the ministry. So working with them, I'm taking on the design, and I'm completing the design of Highway 14 from Church Road all the way to Sooke River Bridge to incorporate westbound turn lanes on all those. So a major turn lane going from the bridge all the way up to Phillips corridor, another turn lane that will go in for Charters corridor, as well as the church project. So like I previously said, the intersection project in Charter South is earmarked in the financial plan for council's consideration in 2026. We will also be recommending and seeing if the ministry would go forward with the construction of the turn lanes at Phillips, Charters, and Church in either 2026 or 2027. There are a lot of moving pieces, and staff do understand that there is a traffic problem in Sooke. Addressing this traffic problem will in some points make traffic worse while we're under construction, but that is just the cost of doing business and the cost of working towards a solution. Next project we have on here, and it's primarily why the next three projects being the intersection, phase 5A and 5B and phase 6 of the Throop corridor there are being put into 2026 in the 5-year financial plan. It is not possible to construct 5A and 5B, the intersection on the highway, because the CRD has a water main replacement project, which they will be putting forward public announcement on and working with the district's communication coordinator to get that messaging out to the public. But in 2025, the CRD will be executing a water main replacement that goes approximately from Church Road all the way up to Phillips Road. So it's a substantial project along the whole highway there for our entrance coming into Sooke. They will be working to manage the traffic control and management plan as best as possible to try and keep traffic moving through the course of this project. But it has pushed back our intersection project by a year for council's consideration, their 5-year financial plan. MOTI project is also going to be major upgrades to the Kaltassin and Idlemore intersection project, which will have a signalized intersection put on Idlemore. That project is 100% designed and tender ready, and the ministry will be advising on an implementation date going into early 2025 when the new government is in place. So high level overview, and like I said, there is substantial funding required for these projects. Borrowing will most likely be an option for council to consider and put out to the public. But going into the sequencing, as in the end of this report, in 2025, major CRD water main project along the highway. In 2026, we're putting forward for council's consideration to implement phase 5A and 5B at Charters and Highway 14 following the implementation of the CRD's water main, as well as phase 6, the segment of Throop corridor going from Church to Charters. 2026 would be a very busy year following the construction of the water main in 2025. For 2027, we would be putting forward the Throop connector and the roundabout north of Sea Park, as well as the Phillips corridor arterial upgrades. Strategically, both these projects would be put forward for 2027 construction. There would be a 1 to 2 year window for completion of these projects, meaning they would be complete through 2028 and 2029. However, if borrowing was put out to the public and was successful in a referendum for borrowing and the money was in place ahead of time, the district, we could give council the option to strategically tender out the connector. Being it would be a 2-year project, we could tender that out in 2026 in unison with phase 5 and phase 6 going forward. That would allow, while the intersection at the highway was under construction, as well as through corridor between Church and Charters, that they would start the clearing and all the preliminary base work on the Throop connector, meaning that there will be substantial delays from the CRD water main project, phase 5 and phase B, or 5A and B of our project. But at least the perception would be that we're starting and engaging in the Throop connector, which will address a lot of the primary traffic concerns. Nothing further to add to this update, but I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any. Thank you.
Thank you to the CAO, to Mr. Carter. That was a lot. It sounded like a machine gun at times. I'll ask that any questions from Council St. Pierre, Councillor St. Pierre.
Through your worship to staff, I was curious about a few things. One of them was, are we taking the opportunity for utilities to go underground? Are the designs going to have utilities going underground? You mentioned dealing with the utilities, especially along Phillips. I was just curious because utilities are in the air right now and go down regularly in that area, and then you have brownouts and so on and so forth. So I was curious, are we actually moving in that direction?
Right now, I believe in unison with the TMP and bylaw 404, utilities going underground are required in the town center area. I always look at the options of putting utilities underground for any of these major corridor projects, but it would literally add 30 to 40% sometimes of project costs to underground a lot of the hydro in these areas. So in most cases, it would not be feasible. But going forward, I would be presenting that to council and advising you what the costs would be associated with that.
Thank you for that. Sounds like it's a little rich for our blood, but it's good to know. My next question was actually around the CRD and the water main. Obviously, most of the work is happening on the highway and is going to be between the CRD and the Ministry of Transportation. You mentioned some elements along Phillips. Is the CRD going to be helping defray costs on some of this work? I assume.
Sorry, it was a question, is the CRD going to be paying for some of these costs? The CRD will be paying for all of the costs of their water main project to put those utilities in place, but nothing towards any of our projects.
And if I may follow up.
Yeah, if you want more than.
Yep, sounds good.
Sure is.
I'm sure. What I'm curious about there is obviously you tear up the road, you put in the water main. Normally you have to put the road back. In this particular case, you're putting the road back according to our new designs. Or would they be paying for any of the putting it back? Because obviously that you don't have to do the work twice. That's why we're waiting.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor St. Pierre. So most of the water main work is on Highway 14. It's not on actually Phillips, but it does go up a little bit onto Charters. But the answer would be yes, in the location of their water main where they backfilled that and brought it up. The backfill in the road base would be put in those locations. So it would basically take away from that minor bit of the cost that was associated with the projects. Yes.
Thanks.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, thanks very much for the report. To anyone watching at home, if they check the agenda pages 19 to 21, there's a very substantial, tight, clean report. So thank you for that, in addition to what you've offered tonight. I'm looking at, you've mentioned 28 to 35 million for, that's all the future phases through to phase 9 in the new map. Is that right?
That would not include phase 9. Phase
Okay.
9, I did not
The
talk
Grant
about.
Road.
That's the Grant Road.
Yeah.
That is, yeah,
Okay.
different project altogether.
So that number, is that include your 20% contingency?
That number would include all contingencies, and we are advancing these designs further to final design.
Right.
We'll be closer at the end of the year. We will have some refined numbers. But yes, for the Throop connector for Phillips and the remaining piece of Throop, it's anticipated to cost anywhere from $30 to $35 million.
Okay, I noticed traffic impact studies have been done for a number of these routes, including, I think you've now completed a 30-year traffic impact analysis for from the bridge to Church Road. Will council get a chance to see that in an open agenda?
So that information is with the consultant. So it's part of our design that we've already conducted. So they provided memorandums based on feeding design input to our consultants for those designs. So they have done a 30-year projection. I can make those memos available in bringing these projects forward. That's not a problem. But I am going sort of the extra mile on these analysis and these TIA assessments. So what I'm doing in relation to the roundabout on the north side of Sea Park, when I talk to the traffic engineering consultants, I'm getting them to model even more than the 30-year. I'm getting them to model up to a 50-year. I'm using the district's sort of OCP in the development potential areas to model increased development within Sooke in some of these areas. And even things like making assumptions that Sea Park might double in size. I want to make sure these designs are right. Everything is built. So when they are built out in the next few years, we're not looking at these projects in 5 to 10 years and going, we need to add more turn lanes. We need to add like another leg to a roundabout. We're looking well into the future to make sure these designs are solid.
Okay, so yeah, I would like to see those reports if possible. And I know that when we go to referendum, if we go to referendum, we will need to make a very airtight case that these phases will make dramatic impacts. Because already on social media, we're seeing comments about, well, is it really needed, the Phillips phases 7 and 8, and will in fact Charters itself with the signal light moving traffic through to Throop be sufficient to need? And I just throw that out to you. Do you?
The traffic light that is a 4-leg intersection that's being designed for Charters and Highway 14, it is required to support the existing development as well as future development. That project was a requirement of the BC Housing Development. I've worked with the ministry to push off the requirement of making that a requirement of occupation or not an occupation of for their building permit requirement and getting occupancy for their building, basically to push that requirement off so that we could push the intersection project closer to when the Throop connector would be implemented. Because although it is needed for development, it needs to be constructed in unison with the Throop Road connector to make traffic flow better. Adding intersections will obviously cause a little bit of minor delays, but working in unison with the overall model for this project, it will make traffic better.
Yeah. Okay, one more quick question and then, okay, sure.
Councillor Pearson, if
Yep,
you could comment.
And thank you for the report and just a couple of questions. And I have some information from the CRD about why they don't pay and why they don't cost share. Because I was at that meeting on October 1st. Phase 8 cost and Highway 4. So my question is that is cost, when you talked about the 28 to 35 million, is phase 8 included in that?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. And then what about Highway 14 intersection? I think you kind of answered that MOTI may improve that. Is that kind of like in cost share with us?
So to go through the phases, you can write this one down because I was a little bit confusing on it. So the Phillips Road corridor phase 8, that could realize costs of anywhere from like $8 to $11 million. The Throop Road connector phase 7, that's could realize costs, I would say, between 17 and $20 million. We're refining these estimates the best we can by the end of the year. Phase 6, the piece in between church and Charters, that is an approximate $3 million project. And then subsequent report is for $500,000 funding towards that project. So with those, the figure of $30 to $35 million would fund those three. I would be hesitant to say, let's try and fund it with a referendum for phase 5A and 5B. I would suggest we try as a district to fund those the best possible we can, because we would not want to be in a position of funding those projects with that borrowing money and then being in a position where they tendered out on the high side of the estimates and we were running short. So my recommendation would be to borrow for phase 6, 7, and 8 and try and fund by phase 5A and 5B the best we can. Currently 5A, that's the piece going from basically Gollage down to the highway. That's a $1.5 million project. I've secured $500,000 funding through an active transportation grant for that piece. The intersection piece, phase 5B, is a $3.5 million project. The ministry, because it is a 4-legged intersection on the highway, has a requirement to fund half of that project, which would leave the remaining at $1.75 million for the intersection project. And the subsequent report is an application for another $500,000 towards our 1.7 on that. So it would be for phase 5 would be $1.25 million funding for the intersection. And for phase 5A would be $1 million funding if successful in the grant applications you'll have presented in the next report.
Okay, thank you. And no, there's no questions, but just a comment that the CRD at the budget meeting, so the permit means that there's no cost sharing because the transmission line is in the MOTI right away. So that's the way MOTI frames it up for them. Highway 14 water main road relocation. They're hoping to start on that in 2025 planning and 2026. Idlemore is 2025, but they have to start securing permits to get underneath the roads. All of those things are we're at the water district meeting, and I mean, I'll talk later about the overall budget, but they're very aware of the traffic issue in Sooke, and particularly when it comes to this piece about Highway 14, from the bridge or from Idlemore to Church, from Phillips Road, from Phillips to Church Road. So they're obviously going to work with you is what they've said, so, with the district staff. So good news from them. They're aware of what that problem may cause. So.
100%. And my expectation of the ministry would be that through that CRD water main project, that they would keep traffic flowing in both directions and not run single lane alternating traffic, as the requirement for the district doing our force main project this year was to execute some of that work on night shift at a cost, because single lane alternating traffic was not permitted during the day. So I hope they would hold themselves to that same standard.
Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Bateman. He had one further question. Or one or more?
No, I'll cut it short here. So I'm very curious about how we move forward with a referendum question. So through you to our CAO, we'll likely, possibly, hopefully, touch wood, have a by-election at some point. It would be nice to see the two things on the same ballot, potentially.
Yes, I think that it depends on the timing. There's a lot of moving pieces for that, for a referendum and all the information, and then the timeframe of when we would potentially have to do a by-election if it's for Councillor Lajeunesse seat. So once we kind of know an answer about Councillor Lajeunesse seat, anticipate we would bring you back, council back a fulsome report on options for that and what that looks like. And if it can't be for the Councillor Lajeunesse potential by-election, then just provide options on timelines for what that looks like kind of going forward. But yeah, more to come again on that one.
So, and with a referendum, does it not take X months of process and approval once we've even determined a question?
Yes, exactly. So that's what I think. I don't want to speak
Right.
out of turn here. So but we will definitely bring back a report on what that looks like with more details and timelines on the plausible, the realistic option of doing that with Council Lajeunesse, which is probably not likely, but obviously we know it's important. So we'll provide you options soon.
So my final comment would be, okay, if we've got 2.25 million to finance 5A and 5B, are there other sources than a grant application we're applying for tonight, and or is it just going to be taxes?
Well, just to confirm, we don't have funding. Mr. Curry can maybe speak to that. We don't technically have the funding yet for those
No,
two
that's
projects.
grant
Mr. Carter
application.
doing what he likes to do is, you know, and well-intentioned, being proactive and trying to anticipate, hopefully, that we can creatively find the funding. Obviously, it depends every year on how much DCCs we collect from a cash flow perspective, and if it potentially would need to be a short-term borrowing option, that's something we could present to council as well, because those are options for lower dollar projects. You know, 5-year loans like we've done for the couple of the fire trucks recently. So we'll definitely be providing council options on that. But there is no, like, yes, it's in the plan, but you know, it's funded grant other. So that means we're every year during our budget process, we rub our pennies together and try and find options. We know those are priority projects, and Mr. Carter is just trying to be proactive and in securing some funding for that.
And finally, we wouldn't have to go to a referendum for that borrowing, would we, at 2.25?
It would depend on the value and the term. Like if it's over a certain term as well, you'd have to get public approval on it. The equipment kind of lower dollar, less than 5-year loans don't require public approval, but beyond that, there's a different process that comes into play.
Yeah, I sort of bit my tongue here for a few minutes. First of all, when it comes to the referendum, we couldn't possibly go to a referendum until we have things costed out. I mean, and I don't see that happening for a considerable amount of time yet. I think we're looking at a year and a half before we're costed out. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption?
No, we will be costed out at the end of the year with Class B estimates that will have basically 25-30% contingencies on the project. And as we advance those projects, the two major ones, Phillips and the connector, to a final design through the summer of 2025. We'll just be able to refine those Class B estimates into Class A estimates, which will not change substantially. So
So when would be the earliest that we could even entertain going to a referendum? And I'm asking for a guesstimate here, just for.
So I'd say, and Rachel can please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say we'd be close in costing this stuff near the end of the year. But there's also other strategies we need to look at for funding this through DCCs. A lot of these are major DCC projects as well. So I'll be working with consultants and some associates on looking for what are avenues we can secure some of this funding or pay back a loan through potential collection of DCCs coming in, which are also, as Ms. Gray has alluded to, an unknown sometime. We don't know how much are going to be coming in each year. Another component that could be used towards funding these projects, which Mr. Curry and their financial team has brought forward in alignment with the asset management plan, is council's commitment to invest in asset management reserve funding on an annual basis, which brings in a substantial amount of money with that committed to, meaning a few $100,000 a year compounded every year. So those funding sources could be options as well to look at, but I would say going through next year at some point, whether it be beginning, middle of year, working with Ms. Gray to determine the most appropriate time to bring that forward for council's consideration. But it wouldn't have to be done right away, as most of these projects are looking to be engaged in 2026 with no tenders starting at the earliest at 2025 year end.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking that is because there was the alluding to in resort to a by-election to fill a vacancy, possibly. We haven't heard quite yet, but and I don't see those two as being tied together, because we'd have to fill that vacancy in a fairly quick order, I assume. I don't like personally a council with 6 members on it. I need to get that 7th one for the odd number. I just want a little bit of clarification on that. Thank you very much. The other thing is 5A and 5B, which is the intersection. But the MOTI is working on that 3rd lane, which they call a bus lane. But that to me could be a bit of a game changer in itself, because if you've got an extra lane coming from the bridge to Phillips Road and an extra lane from Phillips Road or the lighthouse up to Charters, that is going to siphon off a lot of right-hand turn traffic, which is very similar to what the traffic would be siphoning off with the Throop Road extension. So if those two went through, it could buy us a bit of time if we wanted to buy time. I'm saying we have to get on with these transportation master plans. But that to me could make a big difference to the traffic, because that's where it starts to pile up. And so I'm excited to hear about that, but they're calling it a bus lane, but I assume it will be a right turn lane too. So maybe you could comment on that.
Yes, so all the modeling to address the traffic problems in Sooke, the ultimate plan being in place, even the Grant Road connector, it is modeled with everything completed. So basically modeled with the turn lanes in, modeled with the upgrades that we have, all aspects of the plan being completed. That's how we do our modeling analysis when we run out the 30-year projections. So right now I'm working with the ministry. Ultimately, it would be the ministry's commitment, but I am doing the design and taking on the design of the highway and seeing if the ministry wants just the turn lanes designed or the turn lanes as well as a bus lane. So with a bus lane going right through would serve no difference to traffic than just having the turn lanes implemented, because all that's going to do is allow buses to basically go through the intersections, but it would not allow cars. So the turn lanes would serve the purpose for the traffic congestion, and all these projects and the modeling takes place with all the ultimate build out in place. So we know what those look like and what the long-term projections are. So the pieces are not modeled with individual components not being completed. They're modeled with everything being completed.
Thank you. It's interesting. You just you've covered such a tremendous amount of things that are going on, and I'm hoping that the news people, both print and online, get your report and put some of this information out to the public that there is a lot of work being done on the transportation master plan. A lot of work being done to try and alleviate these traffic congestions, barring that we're also going to have some disruptions when they start putting water mains in, even with work at night. It's going to be a pretty hairy time. So you've been very busy in your staff getting some of these things out. I assume you're going to be very busy in the next little while. So hopefully if some of them are listening, they can contact us and get some information out to the world that things are progressing. And the referendum, which is scary to me, something we just might have to deal with. But okay, CAO would like to comment.
Sorry, just to provide a bit of clarity on the referendum piece, or Ms. Bagnell just reminded me that with the bylaw, like you need to get ministerial approval, which will take a few months. So realistically, like it would be June next year at the earliest that we would most likely be able to do a referendum question. And with the by-election, obviously, as we know, Mayor Tate is federally nominated. So depending on the timing of that, so there, you know, you never know, I guess with
Okay.
this. So, but yeah, realistically, it would be kind of mid next year.
So there's a lot of balls in the air.
There's a lot of moving
Yeah.
pieces for sure.
Okay. All right, that's a lot of information and long time waiting for some of those details. The only one I didn't hear about a great deal was the Casino School and that roadwork. That is, that's all ready to go. Is that correct? All the design and everything, and MOTI's responsibility, of course. And so through the chair, to the CAO, to Mr. Carter.
Yeah, for the Caltassin Idlemore project, yes, that project is 100% design and tender ready, and it'll be, the ministry will be releasing date confirmation on implementation probably early 2025.
Wow, more good news, although there'll be more disruptions when they carve that part of the highway up. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Actually, I'd like to move the council receive the TMP update staff report for information.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a seconder. Okay, so St. Pierre moved and Bateman second.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
And you certainly can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment.
Sorry, screwed up. There. I didn't put my light on for that. So yes, you have the floor, Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you. I just want to comment on the options that were offered. I think that like our worship, I'm a little bit worried about a referendum, specifically if the referendum was denied. Basically, if our residents decided they didn't want to foot $35 million, I have concerns of that. So in terms of options, I'm hoping that as staff moves forward with this, we'll have options in terms of what we might do specifically with 15, like for example, if we were to move forward the Phillips piece, and then potentially look to the Ministry of Transportation and the feds to say, listen, we're serving the entire Wanda Fuca. It's not just traffic for Sooke, it's actually traffic that we're diverting for the entire Wanda Fuca. We need some money to help out with, for example, last leg of the project, we've actually paid for everything else. We've done our due diligence. We've got skin in the game. So I'm hoping that we have some options that might be more palatable than the full 35 million. And I'm just going to put it out there that as this rolls out in the months and looks like, year ahead, ideally we'll have something along those lines. And thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, if you want to motivate. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a seconder. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That passed unanimously. Thank you very much. To the CAO to Mr. Carter again. So 8.2.
Yeah, I'll keep this one brief. So every year or two, the ministry opens up an active transportation grant opportunity. It allows municipalities to apply for two $500,000 opportunities. In the last 3 years, we've been successful every year with it. So we've gotten $500,000 for Church Road, $500,000 for the roundabout. Last year, we secured $500,000 for phase 5A, as shown in the map that was just on the previous screen. We've secured $500,000 for Demamio Creek Bridge, which is just being tendered out right now. And this report is for two $500,000 applications for phase 5B, which is the Charters Highway 14 intersection, as well as phase 6, which is through corridor in between Church Road and Charters Road. And I will leave the following resolutions for council's consideration.
Okay. A lot there. So I need some instruction from Ms. Bagnall. We're going to move these separately, I take it.
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair to council. We could move the blocks. They're numbered 1 and 2. So as you see before you, you could move all 3 motions in front of you, if council desires, or you could break it up ad certum if council had an issue with any particular piece of the recommendation. But the number 1 is on the first screen before you, and number 2 is, thank you, Heather, right on the second screen. So I would recommend just breaking it up into 1 and 2.
Okay, I'm not quite clear. What's on the screen is number 1?
That's correct.
Okay, and then we're going to move hopefully 1, 2, and 3.
There is, number 1 is on the screen. Let's call it A, B, and C. And if Heather would switch screens, you see
Okay.
a 2 and then D, E, and F.
So if somebody wants to make a motion from council to move A, B. Yeah, sure. I'm going to go to Councillor Pearson and ask a question.
Okay.
It's a lot of stuff here.
So, I like the parts about the application. I'm concerned about the last sentence in both motions. As that council commits to the total remaining project cost as well as any project cost overruns. And then that's in both motions, that last sentence, that council's committing to any cost overruns. Pretty dangerous statement. I know it's that you've got to start thinking about what if stuff's outside of our control. My question is back to through the chair to our CAO. I know there's standard language in contracts that people are looking for.
Your mic's not on.
Sorry, I know the standard language that people are looking for, but to commit to any project cost overruns, that's pretty scary language for me anyway.
Question to the CAO. Go
Sure,
ahead.
I can start and then Mr. Carter can fill in, but I think the pretty straightforward answer is this is the resolution that the grant requires. And so this is standard. It's been in numerous grants where they will say that the district is responsible for X and any cost overrun. So it's just the granting language that they record. This is the wording of the resolution that the grant stream requires, which is why it's in there. I appreciate what you're saying. And that's why, again, just because we get this grant doesn't mean this project will go ahead. It's subject to budget approval and all of that fun stuff as this progresses. So.
And it just comment,
Go ahead, follow up.
and I'm aware of the language that they're requiring. It just puts us on the hook for cost overruns, right? And things can happen, as we all know, in projects and time delays and inflation. So I don't need any more clarification.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, I was looking for a little bit of clarification on the 3 million for the first piece. I think according to the numbers that I saw in the report and the numbers you gave, it's actually 17.5 minus 500,000, leaving the district actually. So for basically, Ministry of Transportation will be paying 17.5. We're looking for another 500. The remainder is 12.5. Why is the ask for 3 million as opposed to the 12.5? Is it?
And that council commits to its share of the remaining project costs, and our share is outlined in the report as the
At
1.25. But this outlines the remaining project costs, but it's not in the resolution of the ministry's contribution. That's why I've outlined it in the report. So this is for our share of the $3 million, which would be the 1.25 that was outlined in the report if we were successful with this grant opportunity.
Okay, then that was actually my understanding, but I wanted the clarity because it makes it look as if we're ponying up for 3 million, but in fact, it's actually 12.5. And now, unfortunately, I don't recall right now the numbers. What's the breakdown for number 2? So for the first one, it's 12.5, which is what we're actually going to be expecting to try and find funding either through DCCs or borrowing. For number 2, what's the actual amount that we're expecting the district to have to potentially pay?
For the next set of resolutions?
Yes.
It would be basically $2.5 million, $3 million project, $500,000 grant application. 2.5 would be our remaining
Okay,
amount.
so for that one, it's actually the 2.5.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Clarity is good.
Any other questions? Okay, if somebody would like to make a motion, please. You're making a motion on number 1, is that correct? Councillor St. Pierre, and we have a seconder with Councillor Pearson. Would you like to motivate? Councilor Pearson, no? Any other comment? Councilor Bateman?
Now, you did say, through
ahead,
you,
yeah,
you
sorry.
mentioned 25 to 30% contingency on this, so project cost overruns potentially are covered in that area. And you have until Thursday to get the application in, I believe, October 31st. And the project must be complete by March 2027, according to guidelines, so that's not an issue. Okay,
To our corporate officer, do I need to read this out? For the people at home or?
Thank you for the question. That is the mayor's convention. However, it is on the screen and in the agenda package. So I think it should be clear.
Okay. Somebody, did I ask somebody? Yeah, motion, we had a second. Good, okay. Be motivated. So, okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now we'll go on to the second one. If somebody want, okay, Councilor St. Pierre. Okay, Councilor Pierce can second on that. Motivate.
I'll motivate by saying, let's save ourselves $1 million and thank you for the great work.
Councilor Pearson. Okay, hearing no other comments, Councilor Bateman, is your time. Very good. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, raise their hand. Okay, that's unanimous again. Thanks very much. Wow, that was a lot to get through. Okay, where are we at now? 8.3, next steps with the municipal and regional district tax, MRDT process. Two of us. Okay, just explain who you both are and what we'll be doing. So go ahead, Gail.
Good evening, council, mayor. And
Deputy.
subsidiary.
Pretend.
Thank you for the opportunity to reintroduce the MRDT process, bring you up to date on where we're at. And I would like very much to introduce you to Nikita Ingles. She is a staff person with the 4VI, which used to be called Vancouver Island Tourism. And she will be presenting a slide presentation in which it just sort of walks us through the high level overview of the process in which we are already entered into for collecting the MRDT. You have received a staff report, which I'm hoping you all have read. If you have any questions with regards to the staff report or the presentation, after Nikita has finished her presentation, we'd be very happy to answer those questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Nikita. And how come they're both facing this way? Oh, you've got one at the back. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
It's on the screen.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and allow me to present today. On behalf of 4VI, I would like to acknowledge that 4VI gratefully acknowledges the Kwakwaka'wakw, Nuu-chah-nulth, and Coast Salish people that have been caring for the lands we operate on since time immemorial. 4VI is committed to advancing reconciliation in our work and learning from the 94 calls to action identified by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, as well as the implementation of the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. I am going to give a quick overview of the MRDT program today. The MRDT, basically the municipal and regional district tax, is a tax of up to 3% on the purchase of accommodation imposed in specific geographic areas of the province, also known as designated accommodation areas, on behalf of municipalities, regional districts, or eligible nonprofit business associations. The MRDT program was originally introduced in 1987 and raises revenue for local tourism marketing programs and projects, and affordable housing was added as a permissible use of funds through the budget in 2018. MRDT collection. The MRDT applies to the purchase of accommodation, as I mentioned, in designated accommodation areas. Taxable accommodation includes fixed roof accommodations like hotels, motels, resorts, bed and breakfasts, houses, cottages, cabins, and other short-term rentals with 4 or more units. Online accommodation platforms are also now enabled to collect PST and MRDT through the budget of 2018. A clearly defined designated accommodation area must be established for the tax to be collected within, often the municipality or regional district level. The MRDT applies in the same manner as the 8% provincial sales tax, which is also known as PST on accommodation. The tax is remitted by accommodation properties or short-term rental platforms to the Ministry of Finance, which is then provided to the designated recipient organization, which is responsible for managing the funds. A designated recipient is the organization that is responsible to the province of MRDT with a designated accommodation area. And a designated recipient can also be a municipality, a regional district, or as mentioned before, an eligible not-for-profit business association. And in many cases, an eligible entity is typically a not-for-profit society, such as a destination marketing organization. Municipalities, regional districts, or eligible not-for-profit business associations are eligible to be a designated recipient under the MRDT program. The MRDT is collected by the province on behalf of the designated recipient, and the funds are distributed monthly minus the administration fee. And for the 3% tax rate, which the Sooke MRDT application will be moving forward with, a portion of it will have to go to the provincial tourism events program as well. Eligible expenses, the primary purpose and eligible uses would include majorly funding tourism marketing programs and projects. The funds must boost or expand the current tourism funding that is in place and not replace the existing sources. And these funds can further be used for tourism marketing, destination development, destination management, research, ambassador programs, strategic planning, visitor services, operations, and administrative expenses, as well as approved affordable housing initiatives. Capital expenditures do have a restriction. The MRDT funds generally cannot be used for capital expenditures except affordable housing. And any capital spending should require a prior proposal, which should be included in your 5-year strategic business plan with a strong local stakeholder support, a detailed business case with the budget, with the pre-approval from the province, and completing a 1-year tactical plan as well. The MRDT process, engaging the tourism industry and partners and stakeholders is a crucial step through this process. Designated recipient organization responsible for implementation must be identified well in advance, and the process requires a comprehensive application package, including 5-year strategic plan and 1-year tactical plan along with the budgets. The organization must demonstrate a support from 51% of the accommodation providers, representing 51% of the units. New applications and rate changes would require a 9 months of advance notice in case if we're going in for a regional approach. Renewal of these applications would need at least 6 months of advance notice before their term expiry. And this tax would be implemented for 5-year terms with an option to renew. And this is usually notified by the Ministry of Finance when the MRDT collection will be initiated. A few administrative requirements through the once the process is complete would be an annual reporting, which is required by May 31st, including like a financial report, a performance report on the program outcomes, and a 1-year tactical plan, which is usually due by November 30th, subject to extension. And the designated recipient must also maintain effective financial management and accountability, which is hopefully, and the designated recipient is also required to consult, engage, and keep the tourism stakeholders informed. Some of the key success factors that in our experience we have seen is having a clearly defined MRDT boundary, and a supportive tourism industry around in the community, a well-resourced organization to manage the MRDT locally, strong local governance, transparency as mentioned, keeping the tourism stakeholders informed and engaged, and local oversight of MRDT spend and strategy with a diversity of stakeholders and partners. And some key benefits would be a reliable and consistent performance-based funding to the community of Sooke. These funds can be used to manage tourism in a community with a focus on maximizing benefits and mitigating challenges. The funds are also demonstrated to support tourism businesses to grow their revenues and create more year-round employment opportunities, and support geographical and seasonal dispersion. Affordable housing program also enables communities to invest in affordable housing initiatives with the opportunity to leverage funds. This is the reference area around which the regional, the designated accommodation area is how I would like to term it, along which the MRDT tax would be applied if we move ahead with our application. And then just a few things of caution before moving forward, we would recommend is communicating with the media before communicating with the tourism industry, and speaking with absolute certainty that MRDT will be implemented before the votes are secured, because that's a crucial piece. And dispersing funds to too many organizations or allocating it incorrectly might not be very helpful. And lastly, this is a quick roadmap of where the process is at and when are we looking forward to complete the documentation and the submission. So we are currently in the month of October, so around where I'm doing the council presentation currently. As we speak, the background research and targeted interviews are underway, and we are also currently working to establish a working group that will help guide the process further. We're hoping to have a stakeholder information session mid-November, which will help inform our 5-year strategic business plan, and the working group will then help us finalize the business plan as well as the tactical plan. And we're hoping to come back in the new year, January 2025, back to the council with the presentation. And by February, we are hoping to complete the documentation and submit our application. Please note that the timeline would be around 6 to 9 months is how we like to mention, because it can be a shorter window, but it can also be a longer window depending on how busy the ministry is and if they have any questions or comments or concerns that they might want us to revisit. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions from council? I have a few when I get to it, but I'll let other, go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
I was interested in the development of business plan that's associated with the MRDT. So there has to be a business plan that comes along with that, that's going to very clearly delineate how the money is going to be spent and so on and so forth. I was wondering, when does that happen, and how likely are we to see something like the Tofino model, where a very small portion of the MRDT, I think it was 0.35% of the 3% that they're actually getting, went towards the Tofino Housing Corporation to help with accommodations for the tourism industry. I think affordable housing, obviously marketing incredibly important, but we know that affordable housing is also going to cripple the industry if we don't have it. So what are the chances that a business plan that is developed will include that piece? And what would that look like?
So thank you for your question. We are definitely hoping that from all the information that we gather at the information session and through the working group guiding us to have this projected in our current 5-year strategic business plan. Depending on which year exactly it will be executed would likely be determined after the first year once we have an estimate of how much revenue we're being able to make. And then we can include it as a specific goal or target for the 1-year tactical plan, as I mentioned, because that is something that you would then submit at the end of November for the following year. Does that answer your question?
No.
Ask again, see if you can,
Yeah,
go
what
clarify.
I was asking was the business plan, obviously not developed yet.
Yes.
What's the likelihood of there being an affordable housing component, either in terms of supporting corporation or something along those lines?
Yeah, or do you want to?
I think after we've gone through the entire process and we are then able to write the 5-year business plan, what the people are telling us will determine how much of the collection on the MRDT that they would like to see to go towards housing. And again, housing is a big issue. Is it housing for hospitality workers? Is it housing for people with lower incomes? That's a huge, huge piece of the puzzle that has to be discussed. Yes, it has been identified that some of the MRDT funds that are collected can be designated towards housing. But that is I believe, a staffing and council decision when we know we are eligible to collect. Once we know that we're eligible to collect and we have an identification of, let's just say, a roundabout figure that we might be seeing coming in each year, then we can have a down to earth conversation about how much money can be designated towards housing, how much can be designated towards tourism, how much can be designated towards development. Because actually the MRDT has a very broad ability to support an awful lot of community development initiatives. But until we know that we have been approved to collect, and we should have a pretty good idea before we are approved as to how much we should be receiving on a year-round basis. Once we have that figure, we can sit down and figure out how much goes to tourism, how much goes to housing, how much goes to this. But it's still a long way out, Councillor Sage.
So my understanding
No, no.
of the answer to your question is it's too early to give an answer
Yeah.
to your question.
Yeah, so my understanding as his
Okay,
worship was
sorry.
saying, as his worship was saying.
But
Can-
we will
every-
definitely put housing into the business plan.
Okay, is that it's.
There's no question about that.
Okay, so it's early days until we actually know how much revenue we're looking at to decide how to disperse it or how to use it, is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
But that affordable housing, essentially because low-income workers and tourism workers are more or less the same people. So, I mean, really, in a lot of ways, we're talking about the same demographic. And I know the Tofino model was really to address the fact that they couldn't keep tourism workers unless they actually had some more housing.
Yeah.
And they couldn't keep their tourism industry happening unless they had housing for those people. So obviously they're linked. Thank you for that. And actually, one more thing, and it's just the 4 units or less. I think that probably needs to be widely made known, so that basically smaller operators that only have 1 or 2 units aren't terrified by, honestly, the administrative challenges and so on and so forth. It's really the larger operators that are going to be paying for this and then benefiting partially from marketing and so on and so forth. But I think that in order to push it through, got to make it clear to the little guys that they're not going to be impacted by this.
You're absolutely right. We're going to focus on Prestige Inn, Harbor House, and a few of the large 4+ bedroom bed and breakfast, let's call it that. I don't think there will be a lot of short-term rentals or VRBOs
No.
or Airbnbs. So to be very honest with you, if we're just looking at that map in which Nikita brought up, I would also throw in Sooke Point. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, Sooke Point. So those are probably our largest accommodators with 4+ bedrooms. And I think if we focus on that, I am very hopeful it will go through. I don't want to waste our time creating anxiety for small Airbnbs and short-term rentals. It's not worth anybody's time or value to do that. But we will have a very good marketing and communication campaign that communicates out regularly as we go through this process. Thanks.
Hey, Councillor Pearson, I'm going to next.
Thank you through the chair.
On my left eye.
Good presentation. Just two maybe small questions. One's going to be, so the defined area of the vote, is that, have we nailed that down yet? Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, so we've got that.
yeah, Sooke centric, okay?
Sooke centric.
I at one time wanted to do Machosen all the way to Port Renfrew, and I have stated that before in council.
Okay,
I was advised very strategically by 4BI, no. Concentrate on Sooke first.
right.
Let's get that done. And then if it goes the way we hope it goes up to province and then agreed to, we will allow an opportunity for Machosen and Port Renfrew to join us at a later date.
Okay.
Basically, when they're ready and when their capacity allows them to do so.
Yeah, and thank you for that. You've clarified that piece of it because I was kind of confused of how we were going to carve their portion out for them to spend. So that's good. And my last question through the chair is, what metrics in your tactical, you're talking about your tactical plan, what metrics in your tactical plan are you going to capture? Is it working? Is it doing something? How are we going to gather that information back? Because it's not just going to be the destination people who are collecting the tax who are going to give that metric. It's going to be our restaurants. It's going to be other things around the community. What have we got built into our plan for collecting that data on how well we're doing?
So the data that will be collected, or rather the spendings and the reports, are designed in a way where we will be monitoring and tracking certain parameters, which will help us make an informed decision at the end of the first year, that this is where we stand. And that is why tracking the funds and ensuring that we have performance-based program outcomes is going to help us navigate that further in our 5-year term. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw the words performance-based
Yes.
measurements in there. So I'm comfortable. I was just kind of curious at how that will roll out to incidental businesses. How do we grab that?
Right. At this point, it is every designated accommodation area is different, and it is administered differently as well. So there is currently no specific percentage that I can tell you unless I have seen the first year of estimated revenue that we are generating to be able to ballpark that figure. Yeah.
May I just add a few more things that will help you more clearly understand where we're going? It is not normal for municipalities to be considered a destination marketing organization, but some are, depending on the size of the community and their lack of having a designated DMO. I have applied to the BC DMO Association for the District of Sooke to become a DMO. We will be small. And the reason for that is we need to be a DMO to actually be collecting the MRDT. So that application has gone in today. I do not perceive any issues whatsoever in being accepted. The other thing that's important to know, once we are an established DMO, that's a hat we're going to wear until such organizations such as the Sooke Region Tourism Association has enhanced its capability to take this on for us. But in the meantime, if we are going to go after that MRDT, we have to be in DMO. That falls to my role and responsibility, and I am taking that on. It's not unusual. There's several organizations or several municipalities within BC that have taken this on in order to get the MRDT. It's important revenue stream. It's important because it's our economic driver. And so I just wanted to explain that to you. And one other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind is that once I'm a true believer we're going to get it. I maybe not, but I'd rather see the positive side of all of this. And should we get this approved, there are situations such as the Sydney by the Sea just went through the same process and they got accepted within 2 months. So it is absolutely possible that we can do this in a short term. I can't say just how short term, but it's possible. And the other side that's important to recognize is that some of that revenue coming in can be used for staffing and office expenses that would support the extra work that all of this would involve. Because writing those annual reports is not just a little check mark. It's pretty huge. And you have to do it right in order to keep your status. So it's an important part of the whole process. And I think I mentioned one more thing.
Hey,
Nope,
Councillor
that's
Bates,
all
I'm
I
gonna go to
wanted
you.
to say. Okay, thanks very much for allowing me the extra time.
Well, maybe I'll tease out a few more answers from you as we progress here. Thanks for being a true believer, what you've achieved to date with the Juan de Fuca, the corridor plan and Destination Canada, and now this is here. Fantastic work, and thank you both. So just to be clear, so you need to now secure support from 50% plus one of accommodations that have 4 or more rooms. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, even if I have just the 1 room, I will still need to apply the tax. No?
No.
It's strictly for the larger facilities. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything under
Okay.
4
So that's the
rooms
clarity.
would-
I
Yeah.
was not clear, so this was new to me.
Yeah,
So I gotta
apologies for
double
not
check.
clarifying that
Okay.
earlier, but yeah, anything under 4 rooms would not qualify.
Right, okay, perfect. Mr. Hicks will be happy about that. So I noted it's 2 or 3% generally. Now Langford, Oak Bay, Saanich are 2%. Are we shooting for 3?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Not
Okay.
even gonna question that.
Okay. All right. And that'll be atop the 8% provincial sales tax.
That's
And
right.
will barely noticed by anyone signing out of their beautiful Sooke accommodations. The money raised in Sooke initially will be spent on a destination marketing office here in the district.
Money raised from the Sooke collection will be spent within the district of Sooke.
Right.
So I would assume that we will divide it up to support our tourism industry supporters such as CERTA. There will be marketing campaigns. There may be housing initiatives. Hopefully, I'd love to see that, an investment for hospitality housing. But the one thing you have to really concentrate on once you start receiving money is you don't want to spend all your money on one specific area. You want to make sure it's broadly spread out so that people who support or make their living from the tourism industry feel supported. So there will be a lot of discussions. There will have to be a steering committee, I would think, brought together
Yeah.
so that you can discuss how you're going to distribute the funds.
So you do have this working group you've formed. Who are the components?
I don't have it yet
Oh, okay.
until we get approval. I mean, I'm in discussion with all of
Who will
these
be in the
groups.
working group?
Yeah,
So currently we are considering the CERTA, the president and the vice president of CERTA, District of Sooke staff, Sooke Region Museum, and then the visitor services staff to be a part of the working group.
Who was the last one?
Visitor services
Oh,
staff.
visitors. Yes, okay.
and I would also like to hopefully have Jacob Crump from the Prestige
Huh.
and maybe somebody from Sooke Harbor House. I've been reaching out to them today to see if they would potentially be interested because there are big partners.
Okay, thank you. Great work.
One more thing I wanted to add is that I've already
I'm just
committed.
going to just have a 2-minute break
Okay,
because bathroom break. So we're going to have a 4-minute break and come back and resume. So just stay where you are or use the bathroom. I'm dancing here, so. Right. For me, my house.
Upstairs in our living kitchen area. Yeah. I went down and checked and all of the stuff today. There's ways of, yeah. But the next slide to go down is back. That's it. You can see if the next right there's a server there. Yeah. That's like. That's up dearly. So, to go through, it's kind of a neat little subdivision. No. So it lasts like 10 months. Yeah, the calendar is actually, that's not bad. It's like a strand. Walk in and there's.
are we ready to resume? Not yet? Okay.
Okay, we'll carry on. So you now have the floor again.
Okay, a couple more comments that I really think are worth noting. Because I know you're struggling with some, issues around it or misinformation or not accurate information. One of the communities that has gone forward to collect the MRTT is Langford. Now, it's really large and really growing fast, but you and I know they don't have more than 3 hotels. So I was speaking to Donna Petrie today, and she said, we only focused on the big guys. We didn't bother going after the small Airbnbs and things like that. It's not worth it. So they went forward, and with the limited number of hotels they do have, which are Holiday Inn, Bear Mountain, and one other. Anyways, they got it through. And they've been collecting and it has worked very, very well for them. They also had to become a DMO, Destination Marketing Organization, to do so. So looking at that, it's truly understandable that it is possible. The other thing that I know you brought up a couple of times is how will we know how much revenue we're actually going to be able to collect? Well, there is a tool out there. It's called DNA. And I've done enough research on that, and believe me, huge research, to find out that it's the most respected data tool that collects information on accommodators, how many nights, how much per night, and how much does it equate to on an annual basis of the qualifying 4+ rooms. So I've purchased, and well, I haven't yet, I agreed to purchase the tool for 1 year to help us get through this whole process to get to the point where we're approved by the government. And this information, and I did speak with our IT department, spoken to the CAO, everybody that needed to be consulted with to ensure that they were comfortable with me going forward to purchases. It's certainly within my budget and it's not hugely affordable. We've negotiated them down 4 times. So that's good. And I do believe that possibly in 2026, the provincial government will go forward with DNA and barter for a negotiated group purchasing packages for all DMOs. So it'll come right down to very affordable amount of money. But it's absolutely incredible the information they have been able to collect, and it will provide us good reporting information. So those are the only other 2 comments I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you very much for that. You actually, I have a couple of notes here and you touched on them, but I would like a little more clarification. First of all, I'm glad you cleared up about the boundary, because I was still under the impression that we were dealing with Machosen and Juan de Fuca, which to me seemed to be a nightmare. So now we're concentrating just on Sooke. But with that being said, when you're concentrating just on Sooke, there's only so many places that you can tap into. And that gets me back to the stakeholder mapping. It was supposed to be through October. Well, October is just about done. So you have this mapped already? You know who we're talking to?
So currently the stakeholders list that we have is under review, and we are hoping that the working group will help us finalize the list by the first week of November.
Okay, so we don't really have it mapped yet. You're
Not
still in the
yet.
mapping
It's
process.
still
Same with
under
the
review.
formation of a working group. You're going to be
Yes,
hoping to do that in October. And you touched briefly who you're going to ask,
yes.
knowing that we're getting into the Christmas season soon, and to get a meeting with more than 4 people in a room in the next 2 months is very difficult. A very ambitious plan. I see a few minefields along the way, but I don't want to be a downer on this because a lot of work's gone into it. The other thing is you touched on, I wrote down like how much we expect to collect, and you talked about the air DNA to, get us a little bit closer to what we're looking at, but you must have a rough idea with looking around our community and seeing what we have in the way of more than 4 rooms. There's not that many. And could you not give an estimate? Because I mean, if we're going to go through a lot of hoops and raise $60,000, then I'd question if it's really worth it. So you must have, hopefully, if you got a ballpark thought about what are we looking in the way of revenue, and we were talking about the Juan de Fuca and Machosen, I know it was impossible, but not now. I mean, the Prestige those numbers are fairly easy to get. And Harbor House is opening up. We know how many rooms they have. And what's the other one here?
Sooke Point.
Sooke Point. Yeah, okay.
There's a couple of big B&Bs as well.
Okay, you must have an idea.
Unfortunately, I don't have a ballpark figure to give you right now, but as soon as the stakeholder list gets finalized, I will be able to follow up with an estimated amount for you.
Okay, so
Uh,
yeah, I tell you the truth, I'm a little frustrated with the whole process. It seems to be taking forever. And you know, your timelines here are very ambitious, but again, we'll see what comes out of it. You know, you're going to be basically by February, which is only a few months away, for an application submission. And yeah, you're pretty ambitious, but okay, that's the way you get paid to be ambitious.
I
Anyways.
think the safety net here is 4VI has done numerous processes around the province. And so has another consulting group. And because they've done it so many times, it almost becomes a template.
Yeah.
And
But you've got some timelines here that
yeah.
are the first sections are over in a week and we haven't started. So I just saying, I'm going to be watching very closely in the next few months and I'm hoping to see some results because right now I'm just hearing what I've heard before, with the exception now we're looking at a smaller footprint, which I'm very happy with because it's more doable than trying to go out and do those other areas, get these other partners. So, okay, just said my 2 bits. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to move the motion that council receive the report of the next steps with the municipal and regional district tax MRDT process for information.
Okay, Councillor
What's
St.
his
Pierre
name?
is, no, he had already had his hand up, so you'll have to second Bateman and then St. Pierre. Any motivation for both of you?
Well, yeah, I'll just note again my gratitude for all the work you've done, and you do take on a big vision here, and you're delivering. So thank you for that to both of you. I have other things I wanted to say, but it's gone.
Okay, good, Councillor St. Pierre.
I love your timeline. If it takes you a month or two longer to get it done, I'm okay with that, given that it's how long it's taken so far and gotten nowhere. So thank you so much for your work and for some hope on this one.
Councillor Pearson, any comments? Okay. So we have a motion, we have a seconder. Do I have to read it out? Oh, just received the report. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's 4. Thank you very much. It's done. Thank you for that
Thank you.
presentation. Eight point four, strategic planning.
Thank you. I don't have a presentation to go along with this. Just wanted to highlight, before I get into this, I was remiss last time I presented this. I want to say a huge thank you to, of course, the lady who's not here today, which is Christina, our manager of communications and community relations. She did a lot of heavy lifting to pull all these pieces of information together. It was a long, few months now we've spent on this, with numerous sessions we've had with council and a consultant. So I just huge thank you to Miss Christina here, who did a lot of heavy lifting and again, as usual, goes above and beyond to make a document that's hopefully easy for the community to read and will be a guiding document for us going forward here. So on that note, as this was presented to council at the last council meeting, some of the feedback received from council was you wanted to ensure we had a territorial acknowledgement and statement of reconciliation. So that has now been included. There's a whole separate page now with the statement of reconciliation. That was a thank you for pointing that out. Obviously very important to have that in there. The core values and guiding principles statement was added in that section per request from Council St. Pierre. And we have fleshed out more the ongoing community economic development strategies there. And just a reminder to council, this is a live document. So as things are progressing, it will be updated on a regular basis. And I'll just leave that there if there's any further questions, just seeking council's endorsement of the plan.
I'll call for questions first and then I'll take a motion. So anybody have any last minute questions? Because we kicked this around quite a bit last time. And anything else before I ask for a motion? Hearing none, someone, okay, Councillor St. Pierre, make the motion.
Excellent.
I will move the council endorse the strategic plan for 2024 to 2027.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any more discussion to the motion?
Just a comment.
Go ahead, you.
Love what you did with the acknowledgement at the beginning, especially the mural included. I don't know if it was the first time. I didn't notice it the first time, but I think that was really clever and beautiful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, cool. So all those in favor? That's 4 unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to section 9 bylaws, 9.1 Sooke core sewer specified area amendment bylaw number 712147-36 218 6507 Water Street. Staff. CAO staff.
I believe this is, are we speaking to this? Sorry, this is just on for adoption. We're speaking to it. I don't know if council has any questions. It's a kind of a long in the tooth file here.
Yeah.
So just, I believe the sewer inclusion got 3 readings a while ago now. And as actions happening on this file, this has been put in front of council. I don't know if Mr. Carter has anything to add to this. It was just on for
Okay.
adoption for included in the
Well, then
SSA.
what I'll do is I'll ask if council has any questions or we're willing to make the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
I'm willing to make the motion.
Okay.
It's been there since October.
Well, we can make the motion and
A discussion.
okay, and then we before we take the vote, absolutely. All right, so we have a motion, we have a seconder. Can I still do the question in there, corporate officer? Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, would you like to motivate? You did motivate by saying it's gone on long enough. Thank you. And Councillor St. Pierre, anything? No. Okay, Councillor Bateman, you have.
Yeah, so I was curious about this bylaw enforcement issue, which held up the original approval back in 2018. And there's no reference at all to what that issue was. So of course I went back, and this was the famous seawall that had been constructed without necessary approvals within the intertidal zone. Vegetation being removed from the site and fill has been deposited. So that's from the 2018, September 17th, 2018 agenda. So I'm just curious, has that issue been remediated yet?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, I cannot speak to that bylaw issue in particular, but what I can say is that an SSA application is an application that analyzes a property for sewer capacity and bases the application on that. So this has gone through 3 readings. The capacity has been analyzed for that property. The infrastructure requirements has been provided to the applicant to bring sewer to that property line, and there is no impacts on our system. So staff's recommendation to council would be to go forward with adoption of this based on the analysis of the property, based on sewer capacity only.
Okay, based on sewer capacity. So through you to the CAO, what is being done about this bylaw infraction? 6 years.
Okay, yeah, I'll get Ms. Bagnall to respond to that as our manager of bylaw.
Thank you. One of the many hats. Through the chair to council, of course, this did spark discussion at a staff level, and looking into that file, my understanding is that it has not been active in quite some time, since 2018. My understanding at this time is there was also some jurisdictional issues on the location of the seawall. We are looking into it more thoroughly, just to make sure that there's no loose ends, if you will, and to really wrap my head around some of the jurisdictional issues between us and the seashore.
So I have a quick question now. If I'm heard from your staff, CAO, that really these are 2 different things. We're talking about the sewer, which has no bearing on the bylaw infraction. So we can just proceed with the one question we have here. Okay, thank you. But
Yeah, correct. I can just maybe clarify that the bylaw, like, just if council agrees to this adoption tonight, that doesn't guarantee that a property is getting built there, and all, there's many other barriers and issues that need to be dealt with before that. This is just technically, as staff are saying, these are 2 separate issues here, so this should not be held up based on other issues that have not been resolved yet.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So we have a motion on the floor and we have a seconder and no more discussion. So all those in favor? Great, that's passed. Thank you. Back on again. 9.2, General Assessed Management Reserve Fund Bylaw number 916/2024. And this is just moving to accept, right?
Correct. Yeah, this is just a follow-up from the last, from the previous meeting where council gave 3 readings to the bylaw. I don't believe Mr. Gray probably has anything to add. We're just seeking council support and adoption of this bylaw and to consolidate the other 2 asset management bylaws into this main fund.
Sounds like a plan. That's good. I think we have a motion on the
Yep.
floor.
Move.
Councillor Bateman will move that and Councillor St. Pierre will second that. Any discussion to the motion? Any motivation that you need to do? Near none. Okay. So all those in favor? Okay, that passes unanimous. Oh my God, we're just getting through this, rolling along, man. All right, so now 9.3, Development Procedure Bylaw number 900/2024 Floodplain Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 912/177/302/2024.
Yeah, thank you. So this agenda item is presenting both the Development Procedures Bylaw number 900 and Floodplain Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 912/77302 first, second, and third readings. For background, the Procedures Bylaw was created as part of the implementation work related to the UBCM-funded Development Approvals Process Review, the DAPR program. The Procedures Bylaw is one of several short-term actions being implemented to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the district's development approval processes. The Procedures Bylaw specifically seeks to consolidate development procedure information into a single document, incorporate recent changes made to the Local Government Act related to public hearings and minor development permits or development variance permits, and enhance clarity of information. In December 2023, an initial workshop was held with the Committee of the Whole. The meeting involved general discussion related to the DAPR implementation work and to receive initial direction from, on the Development Procedures Bylaw. In April 2024, staff received direction from the Committee of the Whole on several motions. We also received feedback from a small contingent of the development community at that meeting. And these related to notice of application signage, public information meetings, as well as delegated authority for development permits and minor development variance permits. A table with a summary of these motions is attached to the report. As directed by the Committee of the Whole, staff returned to Council in May 2024 to confirm the scope of changes related to the development or delegated DP approvals. Staff confirmed there was no change proposed to the scope of delegated authority, only minor changes to language. Yeah, so the Procedures Bylaw is intended to consolidate development procedure information from various existing bylaws and policies. Therefore, adoption of this bylaw is intended to result in the replacement of bylaws and policies listed on this slide. As well as an amendment to the floodplain regulation bylaw. So there's 2 bylaws here, the Development Procedures Bylaw and Development Permit Delegation Bylaw that would be repealed and replaced, and the policies here, development application procedures, liquor license application procedure policy, and agricultural land reserve application procedure policy, and communications antenna policy. So quite a few. The Procedures Bylaw is generally structured into 2 main sections. So sections 2 to 9 include general information applicable to multiple applications, including the scope of delegated authority, public information meetings, and notification requirements. The schedules that follow include a general step-by-step procedure for each application type. Highlighted in red are those sections of the bylaw related to some of the key changes being proposed. As outlined on this slide, the bylaw consists of 12 schedules. Other than Schedule 1, Notice of Application Signage, each schedule follows a similar format, outlining each step in the development application process for each application type. These include high-level procedural steps only, from application submission and review to approval issuance or authorization from council committee or by delegated authority. Highlighted in red here is a late addition to the Board of Variance Permit Schedule, Schedule 5. Some of the key changes to the Procedures Bylaw that reflect the DAPR recommendations and direction received from council and committee include alignment with recommended best practices, removal of the default requirement to hold public hearings for rezoning applications, notice of application signs, public information meetings, delegated development permits, and delegated minor development variance permits. So as presented, the procedures bylaw aligns with the provincial DAPR report recommendations to streamline applications, reflects recent changes to provincial legislation, increases efficiency and effectiveness of development approval procedures. By consolidating the district's procedures from existing bylaws and policies, the district is placing all development-related procedure information into a single document to support increased accessibility and transparency for the public, applicants, and staff. The Local Government Act now prohibits local governments from holding public hearings for rezoning applications that are consistent with the official community plan. In cases where a public hearing is prohibited, notification is now required prior to first reading of a zoning amendment bylaw. The procedures bylaw has been updated to reflect these changes. As directed by the committee of the whole, notice of application signage is required only for OCP and zoning bylaw amendment applications. No changes being proposed to the current procedures. However, additional language related to sign removal and replacement, as well as reference to sign templates, has been included. Again, as directed by the committee of the whole, the procedures bylaw would require that an applicant host a public information meeting prior to council's consideration of an OCP amendment or rezoning application that includes residential. This is intended to provide feedback to applicants early in the application process. It also acts to fill the public consultation gap where public hearings are prohibited, specifically for residential zoning amendments. Public information meetings are intended to be hosted at the applicant's cost and requires mail out and newspaper notification, a virtual or in-person meeting, and completion of a summary report of the feedback received. Delegated authority currently exists for the director to issue or amend DPs under the district's development permit delegation bylaw. This bylaw is proposed to be consolidated with the procedures bylaw. As a reminder, DP approval is not discretionary. Approval is based on compliance with DP guidelines in the OCP, for example, for form and character. This places an emphasis on early engagement during the creation of the OCP guidelines. The assumption is that if a proposal is consistent with the guidelines, it should be approvable. No changes are being proposed to the scope of DP-related delegated authority. By all accounts, this has been a very effective tool for streamlining approvals. As noted, no changes to the scope of delegated DP authority is being proposed. However, we have consolidated single-family and multifamily developments to residential developments, as highlighted in red on the slide above. Therefore, under this bylaw, the director would maintain the authority to issue or amend development permits unless it is within the town center, contains over 2,500 square meters of commercial, industrial, or institutional development, forms part of a phased development agreement, is located within a comprehensive development zone, or on lands owned by the district. A development permit application that is otherwise eligible for delegated approval will still be referred to council by the director where it is deemed to be in the public interest to do so, or it is associated with the development variance permit that requires council's consideration. The procedures bylaw also includes an appeal process for any delegated decision, which would result in the application being considered by council. Resulting from the recommendations of the provincial DAPR report and changes to the LGA in 2022, local governments may now delegate the approval of minor development variance permits as a means of streamlining development approvals where appropriate. However, as per the LGA, the scope in which development variance permits may be delegated is limited to the siting, size, and dimensions of building structures and permitted uses, off-street parking and loading space requirements, the regulation of signs, and screening and landscaping requirements. Delegated authority for minor DVPs would be a completely new procedure for the district. Notably, as drafted, minor DVPs do not require notification unless required by the director. They may be referred to council for consideration at the discretion of the director, and they may be appealed similar to delegated development permits. General criteria is outlined in the procedures bylaw as well that notes when a development variance permit may be considered minor. These are in circumstances when the variance would have no significant negative impact on the use of immediately adjacent or nearby properties. The degree or scope of the variance relative to the regulation is determined not to be significant, and the proposed variance is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the zone. The procedures bylaw also includes guidelines for the director to consider when determining to issue a minor DVP. These include that the proposed variance addresses a physical or legal constraint associated with the site. For example, an unusual parcel shape, topographical feature, or statutory right-of-way. There is a community or environmental benefit in granting the variance, or it would support a council priority, such as affordable housing or environmental protection. Does not include a reduced number of parking stalls, except where there is a change of use through a business license application. The impact on neighboring properties and neighborhood has been considered, or if strict compliance with the zoning regulation would be unreasonable. Concurrent with the procedures bylaw, staff are presenting the floodplain regulation amendment bylaw 912-773-02 for consideration of first, second, and third reading. The amendment is intended to remove the exemption section, section 19 of the bylaw, and replace it with the development procedures bylaw schedule 9. The noted exemptions section speaks to the procedures related to floodplain exemption applications. This again is being proposed to consolidate the district's application procedures into a single document and improve accessibility to the information. And with that, staff are recommending that council give first, second, and third reading to development procedures bylaw number 900, 2024, and that council give first, second, and third reading to the floodplain regulation amendment bylaw 912-773-02, 2024. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and I also believe that our director, Mr. Marshall, is online if there are any questions directed to him specifically. Thank you.
Council, anybody? Okay, Councilor Pearson.
Yes, through the chair to you. Thank you for the presentation. It surprised me that it came on our agenda as first, second, and third reading. There's a lot of changes, and then of course, you know, we've seen some communication at the 11th hour today. What feedback in the form of the draft changes have we sought out from the users of this? Like I sit here, it looks good to me, or it doesn't look good, or I don't know, I don't know what it looks like. How's that a better way to say it? Have we sought feedback from the users? Because they're the ones that are going to push back. And when we started this journey, it was to get it right and speed up the process, comply with the regulations from the province. And so before we pass for a second, third reading, I would like, I was hoping that it would come back to committee of the whole one more time in a draft form with feedback from the users. Because we got a letter from a former planner from Sooke who's raised some concerns, and some of them I understand and some of them I don't. So it just feels like it's trying to get it a little too soon or something. How's that?
Yeah, through the chair. So, yeah, I'll try and unpack that. So through the chair, the feedback we sought, essentially this bylaw is used by staff mainly, right? So it's a staff bylaw that outlines essentially the procedures. It is obviously a public document as well. We have consulted with the development community specifically early on in the stage, granted at kind of a global level, which has kind of refined that direction that we've had from our consultants, which led to the drafting and then multiple committee of the whole and council workshops, which have been open to the public, where we have had contingent of development community members that have asked multiple questions, which we have answered. And then we've come back to the committee of the whole, received direction from the committee to go to council for reading. So that is where we have ended up today.
And thankfully, I was at all of those meetings. I just, again, I'm seeing concerns that, like, yeah, I understand it is a staff document and there's no question in that, but what have the users told us? Is it workable for them? Because they're the ones at the end of the day that have to come in, comply to our regulations. And if we've done a not the best job, because what I was hoping is at the end of this, there'll be no questions, so that everyone understands it and understands the purpose and that, like speeding up the processes, all of the things that we committed to in the beginning and simplifying that, making it clear. So is there harm in asking one more time for it to go to committee of the whole or have some input from the user groups.
Yeah, through the chair. I suppose that there may be some harm. Staff do have quite a full plate at the moment, and this would take away from achieving other goals or priorities that we look to accomplish in the fourth quarter here of this year. In saying that, yeah, I mean, we have received feedback from council, from the development community, and we feel that it's a pretty strong bylaw. And we can certainly address some of the specific questions if you had any regarding the bylaw or those that have been submitted to council. I'm so happy to do that here.
I don't have to put up my hand, do I, since I have the chair? Yeah, I guess when I was looking at the question and I was getting your answer a little roundabout way, but you have said that we have consulted the building community and that we have had these discussions in an open forum here, which anybody could attend to. And sometimes I get a little frustrated that things come in at the 11th hour when people had the opportunity to deal with it over the course of the year, because we're going back to 2023 here and some of this stuff. So it is a little frustrating to me that we get things at the, I haven't even had a chance to read that last email just before a council meeting. It's like someone read this and saying, whoa, well, where have these people been over the course of time? Not exactly, you've been taking submissions from anybody, I assume. Is that correct? So I'm asking the question.
Sorry, repeat the question.
You mean if somebody sent a concern to you over the last 6 months, you would have addressed it? Is that correct?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm a little frustrated with the 11th hour here. So, but I'll go to my fellow councillors. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
So just to go over this again, we've had 2 committee of the whole and a regular council meeting where this has been discussed, I know, exhaustively, with input from council, from the development community, from any of the members of the public that might be interested in commenting on it. At this point in time, we've spent a huge amount of time and money from the province, luckily a fair amount of money for the provinces, not ours, that's good, to actually improve the speed of development and clarity of development for everyone, to actually improve the process. And that's what this entire thing was about, was basically getting on with actually making a better system, a better development process for developers. I think the harm is actually in just waiting. The harm is because we've actually been trying to improve the flow and increase it. And right now, and this is something we talked about exhaustively at one of these committee of the whole, we don't want council to be in the way of actually achieving its own objectives, which is actually to improve the development process.
We're at the question stage. Is there a question there?
Why wait?
Councillor Bateman, you have anything?
I've got lots of comments too, and then a couple of questions. I'm very excited about public information meetings. Now, I do note PIM guidelines will be provided by staff. So you haven't told us in the bylaw what those guidelines will be. Can you give us a preview?
Yeah, through the chair. So we do have a terms of reference in draft right now for public information meetings. Essentially, it just provides a guideline to applicants as to their responsibilities associated with a public information meeting, the information that should be provided following that, and just the responsibilities for notification, mail out, newspaper advertising, that the meeting must be held on lands outside of the municipal hall.
That's in your bylaw. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So there's some crossover as well, but yeah, basically just some high level guidance on what we expect as part of the PIM.
Yeah. As I've discussed at some of the information sessions that Urban hosted and at the April 29th Committee of the Whole, these public information sessions, of course, are a stand-in for the public hearing effectively. So if I'm interested in a particular development, I can't make it on the night of this public information hearing. Is there some sort of backup resource where I can go later or anytime to look at storyboards or rationale statements and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we would, sorry, through the chair, we would have the summary report that would be completed. And certainly we could connect a member of the public directly with the developer if they would like to speak at the conceptual level, if it's just a rezoning application, because we may have concept details as well at the early stages. So that's part of the purpose of the public information meetings, is just to provide some feedback and understand, I guess, to help guide future development proposals following rezoning. Yeah, we also have notification prior to first reading, and we have that summary report that would be attached as part of the report package to council. So,
Right.
yeah.
So would the summary report require the storyboards and concept designs and various other key components?
Yeah, through the chair, whatever would be available at the time.
Whatever would be
from
available.
the applicant, yes.
All right, and the public information meeting, would there be a requirement for staff or council members to attend to ensure that the information that comes forward properly represents the mood and feelings expressed at that public information meeting?
Through the chair, no, there's no requirement for staff or council to be in attendance. It's done completely private. So separate from the district and staff,
Okay.
but we do provide guidelines in that terms of reference as to what
Yes.
our expectations are for that summary report.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll skip that. The April 29th draft bylaw that came forward is pretty much what we're seeing tonight. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct, with a few changes.
Yeah.
We've added a couple schedules, procedures, Board of Variance being one of them. We've also removed the residential strata conversion.
Yeah.
We've added a definition of public interest. That was a discussion
Yes.
topic, and there are some redundancies, I think, in the some of the eligibility criteria or considerations for minor development variance permits. So we removed one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a table of changes attached to the report that speaks to all of this.
Okay, good. Another question, the Development Review Committee, who will be comprised of that committee?
Yeah, through the chair, so the DRC has been ongoing for the last 2 years. It's not a new committee. It's composed of just staff. Essentially, we review applications on a weekly basis.
Okay. And finally, the procedures. Each one of the schedules has a very clear, clean procedure, step by step, right through to final approval. So I'm making a comment now, but that was pretty much a critical piece of a best practice here. You would agree?
Through the chair, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, I'm willing to entertain a motion now. You making that motion, Council St. Pierre?
I move the council give first, second, and third reading development procedures bylaw number 900/2024. And the council give first, second, and
If I may,
Yeah, go ahead. Do it
please
separately?
separate the bylaw readings.
Just the first.
Just the first one.
then I'll do the first one. You read it? I'm done.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? That's Councillor Bateman. You really wish to motivate?
Mostly what I was saying before, out of turn, I guess. Well,
Okay,
uh,
as long as the information gets out there, that's the thing.
ideally, we're trying to improve the process. It's what we've been trying for a long time. We've spent a lot of resources, and I think the development community deserves a chance to actually get a better process, which we're on the way to producing. If there are any issues, and there always are, because let's face it, this is an iterative process where perfection is not in the cards. We will identify them, we will address them. It's unfortunate we can't be perfect, but that's because we're just not. But this is a huge step in the right direction, and I think we owe it to ourselves to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I think it's very, very strong new bylaw. I look back at 705 and 490, and they are brief. They don't tell you much. They list fees, number 490 lists fees, development procedures bylaw 2011. And it provides none of this step-by-step procedural content, which certainly has helped me finally begin to understand the process in each of these categories. And I think for those with the late input here, there has been so many opportunities along the way, going back to those urban sessions, which were in committee of the whole, I believe, back in October and December of last year, and again in late April, and then another subsequent council meeting. And yes, there were formal input opportunities, workshops, I believe, offered to the development community as Urban developed its DAPR report. With the recommendations, this is recommendation 1 on that report: repeal, replace procedure bylaw 490, consolidate aspects of the floodplain bylaw, align with local government act amendments arising from Bill 26. So that's all happened. Congratulations and good luck with the remaining 46 recommendations. I'm sure they're all underway to varying degrees.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, do you have anything to say?
I will be voting against the motion because it feels like, you know, the intent was to streamline the process. We've added public information meetings at the expense of individuals, not parameters around single lot subdivisions. There's a lot of things that still feel like it's more complicated than where we started out to wanting it. So for those reasons, I will be voting against it.
Okay, I think enough's been said. I have some points, but they've been covered by other councillors, so I will not comment further. I will call for the question. All those in favor? That's 3-4, and how many against? 1. That's, please note, Councillor Pearson has voted against that. Thank you. That is passed. Next, the second portion of it, the council will give first, second, and third reading to floodplain regulation amendment bylaw number 912-773-02 2024. Councillor St. Pierre has made the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bateman. Any discussion to the motion, or motivate first, I guess? Motivate anybody? Okay. Any more discussion? Councillor Pearson? Okay. I got nothing to say as well. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those against? Okay, please, Councillor Pearson has voted against that. Thank you. All right, so that's that. Now we should come to new business. Do we have any new business? All right, council verbal reports. Councillor St. Pierre.
Recent meeting of the CRD Intermunicipal Climate Task Force had some interesting developments. We were introduced to an organization called Rush. And Rush, I can never keep their name straight. Basically, they do climate mapping. They were developing a very interesting map of different resources and what's going on in terms of climate action in the South Island. The interesting thing, though, is that they have basically a project that they're working on right now in collaboration with various local governments to basically mark various drains for whether or not they have salmon and so on and so forth. They'll be needing some data sharing, and I'm sure that Ms. Moog will be on top of that, since CRD staff is undoubtedly in communication with her, but I found it to be an extremely interesting organization. They're doing some really good work. In addition, I was introduced to the idea of sustainability scholars. It seems that UBC offers access to sustainability scholars and they can do work for organizations in terms of reaching their objectives for a nominal 10K fee, which honestly is, in terms of getting some good solid research done, is pretty decent. Again, Ms. Moog may know about it, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. And other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman, anything?
Yeah. So I participated in a 3-part series from the Fireweed Foundation, which is the outcome of that has been this document here, which Councillor St. Pierre showed us earlier. This is being produced by the district. Steve Unger, Helen Ritz was part of the team that assembled it, and particularly Beth Lang and Elizabeth Lang and Shondell Holden. And it was a really powerful 3-part series, that the end point being developing a personal climate action plan that I'm committed to getting a heat pump and getting a hybrid at some point when I can afford it. And Yeah, it was a wonderful series and highly recommend. There'll be a second one of these series in the new year. And this plan is now available online. And it arises out of the climate action plan of last year or 2 years ago. I also facilitated a panel discussion for the Victoria Family Court. This revolved around the School Police Liaison Officer Program and the Mobile Youth Services Team. Missed funding has been cut by the province, and they're a very vital group, the MIST group, the 250 vulnerable teenagers in Greater Victoria who are in all kinds of perilous situations, gangs, drugs, sexploitation, sextortion, homelessness. Anyway, we are advocating very strongly. We got an op-ed into the Times Colonist this last week on the subject, and we'll continue to do that work, which the district has also advocated for. I gave the territorial acknowledgements for the district and Vancouver Library Regional, the Regional Library at Orange Shirt Day, and had a wonderful morning on October 4th, being part of the team that unveiled the new mural at Cedar Grove Mall. Just beautiful work. Hopefully you've all seen it by now. Shelley Davies and Diego Narvez and their work. And now hopefully we'll look at expanding murals now that we've got public art into our strat plan. And finally, along with Moonfist, Andy Schell and Deb Shank from the Chamber, I helped organize the JDF Malahat All Candidates Forum. Just drew a full house to EMCS on October 7th. And yeah, so when we go home, maybe we'll know what, get a final answer.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes. Thank you. And I kind of snuck a look. I attended two water district meetings, the CRD Water Commission, the Big Board, and the Juan de Fuca Water Supply. The thing of note for our community is that we broke a 24-inch water main on the Galloping Goose Regional Trail as a result of the forest fire. And a tree came down, just happened to hit right on the pipe, which was less than 2 meters deep. And it caused a rupture in that pipe. They made a decision at 6:30 or something in the morning when it was discovered to run it broken to fill up all of our reservoirs. And Sooke, the Helgeson Reservoir is one. And by 2,400 hours plus 30 minutes, it was repaired. An amazing repair by our CRD water staff. So at both meetings, I had the opportunity to thank CRD Water, Alicia Fraser and her team for getting us back online with no interruption to our service to the public. We and their thanks came out to the Sooke community for taking note in water restrictions on that day. So before the atmospheric river, we had about 69% full of our reservoir, and I think that I'm not sure exactly what it was yesterday, but it was getting closing in on 90%. Water rates for 2025 will increase. Wholesale water rate is currently at 80.94 cents per cubic meter. The new rate will be 86.31 or 6.63%. Agriculture is still at 21.05 with no change for the 2025 year budget. The average household will be paying $12.83 more per month, actually. So it's a significant increase, but there's they look after 100. Oh, I'm not going to tell you, 15 years old pirate one. I have it all written down about how many miles of water lines and things that they support, and it's absolutely incredible how many services we have within the CRD and in our municipality, and big projects planned for us in the next one. Some of which we talked about upgrades, Helgeson Reservoir to the top of the mountain over there. That reservoir is planned on going ahead this year, and I'm not sure what the cost was. I think it was like $17 million. So lots of projects going forward with CRD water in our area. That's about it for me. Thank you.
Very good. That's a lot of information, a lot of good information. Right? I tell my wife the water rate's going up $12. She'll be happy as can be. Just a little quick note on Sea Park. We did delay our strategic plan. Our consultants had a little bit of a problem. And we'll be starting it next month instead of last month. The other thing is the Cedar Grove opening. I was there. Trouble was I was there on Saturday and it was opened on Friday. I got to learn to write it in my calendar a little clearer. So other than that, I have nothing else to report. So with that, if we could have a motion to adjourn and go to the closed meeting. Okay, seconder, all those in favor? That's good. All right, so everybody clear out? We'll take a 2 minute break. Oh, we'll make it 5 minutes, 20 after. Please clear out.